our first practice was at the field hockey field, and so it wasn't terrible. It was wet all the time because I didn't know this when I agreed to practice on it, that they water that thing down so the ball doesn't bounce. Obviously, I didn't know that, so I'm so excited telling everybody we're going to practice on turf and this and that. And I remember the first couple of practices, we went out there, everybody's shoes were soaked. I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. I'm lying to them already, and they probably think I don't know what I'm talking about. But, you know, we did some practices at the park too. I don't know if you remember that, but the park was grass and muddy, and we had to line the fields, and, you know, the field was kind of like this and that and had potholes in it, and it wasn't terrible, but so I remember practicing out there for years, a couple of years, and then Leonard Sandridge said, you know, I think athletics was probably different. It was hard for them to schedule their practices around our time. It was just so much. So finally, Leonard Sandridge got the university to build us the Carsell Field. So we got out there. We didn't have a storage shed at first. It was just a field. I don't know if you remember that. And we actually had a pod that we kept everything in right there. So Kyle Singleton, I'll never forget him and doing this. This was pre-Trevor, you know. Kyle was kind of the guy at first because I think he was an engineering major and very, you know, he's like, you just tell me all the equipment, I can figure this out. You know, he did like some math formula and figured out how every instrument would go in this really small pod, plus music stands, plus podiums. Everything went in that pod, but I remember it all lined up every night, and then they'd all figure it out. Get in there, and if you needed something in the back, you were done. You couldn't get it. You'd have to wait till the next practice. But so everything went in and out of there every single practice for a while, and then we got the shed built out there, which was nice. So we used to carry things back and forth from our storage room there, and then the storage room over here until we had it. I think we rented trucks all the time to do that. And then whenever it rained, though, you know, we'd have to take things from the storage room to the cage. I don't know if you remember that. So we'd have to watch the weather constantly for the first couple of years. But the Carsell Field worked out to be great. And then the next thing they did was, you know, they built the steps to go up to the road. The parking garage ended up going up there. And then the building was going to be at the Carsell Field. Originally, that was designed to be at the field until we found out that it was a 100-year flood zone. So that didn't quite work out really well. So we ended up talking to Mrs. Smith. One time, possibly the building was going to be at the park, all the way out there. But we wanted it close to grounds that people could get back and forth to classes and not have to deal with a lot of problems. So the university suggested the site where we're at now, there was a little parking lot. And so Mrs. Smith agreed to put it there. The university was happy with it, and they started construction on it. And about 2 years later, it was built, and you know, it's totally changed the way that we do things, and just everything in general. I remember you, Kirby, having to text people all the time. We're going to practice here. We'll be under this light pole saxophones, or you know, let's go to the cage and do this. Now, drumline's at the cage, guards at the cage, trumpets are in this room. And I remember Dave Knight going on something called The Source and typing in very fast, we can get this room, we can do that room. And we'd have to get all the instruments there. And I remember you, I don't know how you did it, you got in touch with everybody and told them to go here and there. And I just made it, I think the Cav a few times we used, remember that, sweating in that thing. You know, that was tough. So it made it very interesting, especially if we were changing the shows every week. If we didn't do that, and someone asked me about that. How'd you guys come up with that? I said, well, we just did it. We never knew it any other way. They never knew it any other way. We didn't use flip folders from the very beginning. I used to enlarge the music big so they couldn't use the flip folders, because at the time no one had access to, you know, shrinking music as quite as much as you do now. But so that's why we did that. But we used to practice more, actually. I think we used to practice Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and no Fridays unless it. But so I remember we cut that out. I don't know, 4 or 5 years in, we went down to 2 days a week, and that worked out. That worked out fine. But at first, you know, we would have struggled. You know, I don't know if you remember this, Kurt. We did our first CD was at band camp of the first year. I don't know if you remember that. That's when we recorded that. that first CD that you hear was recorded after about 6 days of practice. 6 days of the inception of the band. It was done at band camp, so we could have the CD ready for the season. So it came out, as we were performing. Now more tunes were added on there, but we recorded a lot of those pregame things for the radio, for all kinds of stuff during band camp at that field hockey field over there. So that was that's amazing. I mean, who does the first couple days? Only those guys would have done that. And I don't remember the exact number of the band at the beginning. Someone asked me about that. I think it was in the upper 150s to 160. I think they announced 170, but it wasn't 170. It's so like your height in basketball. You're 7'5" when you're really 6'8". But no, so that was kind of neat. I just thought about that when I was thinking about how the field and things all kept up. But those are, and you bring up the field and I think about all the equipment guys. Obviously Trevor was just ridiculous, doing so many great things, and Kyle kind of got all that started. They were both trombone players, so I guess that's how that all worked out. And we've had some, Phil has kind of jumped on that, and now we have another trombone player, Joe Lindsay, who's kind of like that. And so it's just how that kind of evolved. We've had some really good equipment guys over the years who have spent a lot of time before and after practice setting up mega boxes, setting up all kinds of water coolers. Obviously Mr. Coleman helped do a lot of the water things, but we had the Gator. Well, I think that's one of our first purchases, was buying the Gator. I know the university got on me about that. Why does the band need a Gator? So pretty much many of the purchases that we made at the beginning they thought were kind of strange. Tiffany Hornberger, who was obviously our first administrative person, who was just a sweet girl, she got us a drumline truck. She gave me a lead on that. The one we still using, it was an old yellow Penske. We got it for like $2,500. It still looks like it's $2,500, but it's still running. But I remember that we painted blue on it to make it look really good, but it still runs terrible. But it got us around because we couldn't afford to do much. But I mean, I think the thing too is all the things we did not, you just don't think about, or that you assume. Like when you're outside practicing, the wind blows. Well, we had stands, so no one thought about clothespins, so we had to buy clothes. I think you were the one that started putting the music online, or maybe it was Kyle, and then Kyle Singleton, because he also did the website. That's kind of the thing too, is most of the people back then, they do multiple jobs. No one did just one thing. I mean, if they only had the title, they did everything. I mean, they did it all. So I mean, now I think we had 210 people apply last night for leadership. So we don't have many people do multiple things anymore, because we want everybody to be involved as much as possible. So it's through the years, it's crazy how high our retention rate has been. I think 78% or something like that was one of our lowest ones, and it's been as high as 90, 91. We take that pretty seriously. It's not for everybody, but I think we graduated almost 70 this year. And when you start with a class of 90 to 100 and they make it through 3 or 4 years of band, that's a lot. And given the majors, now the majority of the band's engineering. At the beginning, it really wasn't. It was kind of a hodgepodge of majors, but I think we have about a quarter of the band as engineering majors, which is ironic, because they're the ones, they don't have the toughest major necessarily. Other people would get mad if I said that, especially Curry School and Rodney, but no, his was really tough. But I think it's more, theirs is structured as far as what they're taking. They don't have a lot of options, so it's kind of interesting that the engineers are the dominating major in the band. Biomedical, chemical, mechanical, you name it. So, but it's the facilities have really changed the quality of our band, and obviously seeing this building go up It's something pretty special.
See you in the library.
I don't know where that came from. I'm trying to think of where. I know it started at the beginning, but I think it was because when I first started meeting students here, and I never did that at Western Michigan. Probably because they didn't go to the library, but no, it's mainly music majors. So, the majority of the band, well, half the band was probably music majors. So, I don't know where I came up with that, except for I think that the students I'd always talk to were always talking about libraries. I'm going to study in this library. It's just library. As a music major, you have one library, and you dread going there unless it's listening to music. I was like, oh my gosh, library. So, but all the students, especially at the beginning, I mean, they all do it now too, but they always would talk about going to Alderman or talking about, hey, I'm going to study at Clark or all these other places. I don't even know if Clark's a library. I don't think it is. It is a library. Okay, well, there you go. I guess they talked about going to libraries all the time. And I thought, oh, okay, man, these kids are constantly in the library. So I just remember at one of the practices just saying, I'll see you in the library, because that's where they all are all the time, and they were always concerned, especially in the early years, about making sure they did well academically. Because, when you don't start band from your first year, your fear is that you won't have enough time to be in it, or this or that. So they were always trying to balance this out. And it was new, so starting that as a second year or a third year was difficult, because you hadn't built that time in already. So they were always like, am I going to be able to pass and do band and do this and do that? And I think that's how that all came about, was, see you in the library. Because I knew after practices, a lot of them would just scoot off to the library. And plus, we always wanted to encourage that. Because I knew if they didn't do well academically, they wouldn't be able to be in the band again, or they would blame it on the band. And later in life, you sit there and say, well, I'm sure it was more than just the band that caused me not to do well in school. Typically, it's, your preparation. But they wasted more than 2 hours a day. But, you can't tell somebody that when they're in college, because they know more than you, which is, that's fine. I thought I knew a lot too, the more you know, you don't know. So, there you go. Mrs. Smith has been great to all of us, and such a big fan of the band. The thing that I respect about her the most is never once has she said to me, I want you to do this with the band, or I want you to run it this way, or, I'll do these drill formations, or I do this color, or do this or do that. Very rarely does anyone in life, probably myself included, give that much money or give that much of their time and not want to have any input as far as the result of the call. Just do the best you can. And I think that's a great lesson, and I admire her so much for that. And I've tried to really use that a lot now with our leadership, to say, someone says, well, how do you want me to run the section? You run it like, you want to. How you want to do it. As long as the quality is there, like we've had in the past, you have to run your own personality. You can't run like me or Mr. Cook or Mr. Izzy, or you have to run like you want to do it, and that's all I care about. And that's, she's always asking me, do the kids have enough? Do they need this? Do they need that? What else can we do to help you guys be successful? And I think it brings so much joy to her when we play. She's so lucky, in my opinion. I mean, I wish I could affect that many people in a positive way. You think about the years that she's affected all the band members and never wanting to be seen. She hates to be recognized. And I try to recognize her whenever, because I think it's important that everybody knows. But she does not like that. I had to really put a power play on her to have her name on the building. She didn't want her name on the building. She didn't care if her name was on the building. Smith, even if it was just Smith, I said, we got to have it, Hunter. We got to know. We got to have your name on this building. I mean, you know, you've done so much for us. And to not have been a band member herself, or not to even have gone to UVA herself. I mean, her husband did, but she went to William Mary. That is amazing. And then, obviously, what she's done for the community, Monticello, you know, the renovation of Monticello, the YMCA here in town, obviously the local schools, the things that she's done for the local schools, for UVA athletically, for what she's done with the band program. I know that she helps out in other areas of the university. You know, what can you say? I mean, I love her to death. She calls me pretty routinely on Sunday mornings, and usually if I'm sleeping, she leaves a message saying, you know, Bill, I just wanted to tell you, I'm just so proud of those kids, and please let them know that they mean so much to me. And I think it's to see her get so much joy out of the way the band plays, or what they do, or how they look, and she's a special person, and we're lucky to get to know her, and then to benefit from her gifts, and you know, I guess her success financially, her family's success, you know, her and her husband success financially, what she shared to just us, I mean, it is amazing. And I don't know, it's really really special. So I love to have her come in with the band whenever they get a chance to give her a hug or get to see her. You know, obviously you being here at the beginning, Kirby, when you know, you've seen how her gifts have really made the band what it is today. And but again, I never once said, one time she said, hey, can you play me a country tune one time? I think she did say that one time. Hey, I love country. I think I asked her. She didn't tell me. I said, what's your favorite kind of music? She said, country music. I said, okay, we're going to do a country tune. And then, you know, so I think, but she didn't tell me to play it. I asked her, because I just like, you know, I thought, what can I do for you, you know? But I don't know. I think one time somebody said something to me. I think they read it on my course evaluation, which was probably the only time I was very upset about something, because, you know, people can do that without claiming it, you know, who they are. I think that's the only time I was very disappointed when they said, yeah, you know, sometimes we have to, we sold out for the donor or something. And I thought to myself, you know, that was probably the most hurtful thing anybody could ever write to you, because I'm thinking, no, I don't think so. I mean, thanking somebody, I don't know if that's really selling out. I mean, they think it is, then that's fine. But going over and maybe cleaning her house would be selling out. But I don't think. I think it was when we spelled her name or something. When somebody wrote that, I thought, first of all, we wouldn't have what we have and all this. But I guess that's just a different way of thinking, you know. And that was the only time I was very disappointed about somebody saying that. But through her, we've gotten, I mean, obviously the Macy's trip this year, you know, and, I mean, people don't realize, I mean, all those little things for the bowl, it's because of her. It's not because athletics gave us all that money. It was because of her. And the scholarship money that we have now, it's not the school. It's her that gave that money. And I mean, again, you know, I think there's over 100 kids that get scholarship money now in the band a year. That's a lot. That's a third of the band that are benefiting from, and then we're all, obviously, we're benefiting from the building. But, man, one day, to have touched that many people and not want to be recognized for it, because she truly doesn't. Oh man, that's a really special person. That's somebody that I really, really admire. I wish I could have gotten to know her. I knew her husband at the end of his life, but I wish I could have got to know him, you know, years ago when he was, you know, still in really good physical shape. But no, a great person.